campus has looked this year, and then maybe we can ask a little bit further about how we can open up and maybe start the dialogue about adding more classes here at the school. So Principal Beckman, if you don't mind.
So I'm just going to start with some of the conversation that Daniel was having, and then I'll introduce you to Ursula Fokine and Jody Schuster again. So in our building, when we did start this program 6 years ago, it was through the support of, at that time, Council Member Jessica Lappin and Micah Kellner in terms of the work that we were doing, and that's why our partnership opened up between District 2 and District 30 in terms of being able to sustain a program. Through those years, up until this year, we've never had a kindergarten class, kindergarten, first grade, or second grade class that was completely full in its capacity. When we first started the program, you had 12 kids in a class, and as kids moved on, we had upwards of 15. Ms. Schuster had taught first grade 4 years ago. She had 15 kids, and so as a school, the Department of Education funds you per capita by child, not per class. And for us to be able to sustain all of the needs in the building, we really do need to have close to 28 kids in a class in the upper grades to sustain paying for all of the needs in a school building. And so for that reason, as a school, we've moved towards having complete full classes as opposed to half classes. And so in the past, we had to have bridge classes for 2 years. We sustained that, and it was definitely an experience for us. We learned a lot from having a bridge program. If we ever had to have it again, we would. But it's also something that we're looking to have full classes that move up. Our first class last year that graduated, our 5th grade class, we graduated 11 kids. So from the moment we started the program, and there was only 16 kids in that class, we got some attrition, and then we went back down to 11, which is really costly. If you talk about $4,000 per child, it wasn't even enough to really sustain the cost of the classroom teacher. So for that reason, I'd have to say Daniel's office has been really supportive in terms of working with the school and being transparent about the number of kids that are on the list, and by them opening up the ability for the school to call to get families off the wait list. As soon as Ms. Schuster found out this year 2 families had left, Ms. Lorraine was so quick to call the families that were next on the list to invite them into our program. So we appreciate that model that the DOE put in, and we did that same thing with first grade and with second grade. The thing is, as Daniel had mentioned, we don't really know the number of kids per year that are going to be siblings. That's definitely a factor. It's not like our programs are completely filled by siblings. But moving into our building, whether you're in G&T or in Gen Ed, and I know for some of our Roosevelt Island residents who might not have gotten into our G&T program, but they're part of our building, our philosophy is about the whole school, the whole child, and about the integration between the two. So our G&T teachers plan with our general education teachers. The content of the curriculum is the same. The difference is the depth that you're going into and the conversations that you might have with some students in your gifted and talented program. We have kids who are not readers, who are struggling writers, who are struggling mathematicians in our gifted and talented program. But what I ask teachers to do in our building is to really understand who the learner is and what is it that they need to be able to push themselves and have access to curriculum. So I know that Ms. Schuster can speak to some of the ways that she's designed some of her curriculum to really give her higher level kids in that class access to push their thinking, and then give those supports to some of her lower level kids, because as Daniel had mentioned, you have a range of kids who've gotten in terms of what they've scored, which we don't have access to. I do want to have Ms. Fokine speak to you a little bit about the process in terms of how we handle it. We take it very seriously in terms of the testing that we do on the school level. And then she'll talk a little bit about curriculum.
Hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to 217. My name is Ursula Fokine. I am the instructional coach in the building. I've also wear the hat as testing coordinator. I've done G&T testing. I think this is my 8th year testing G&T kids. It's a lengthy process. We have a window this year of about a month, starting January 6th through the end of the month. You will receive a letter in writing 48 hours before we test your child. This is a mandate that I need to fulfill, so you know that your child is being tested. If your child is sick, if there's a snow day, if there is an issue about them being in school, please do not worry. We will find another time to test. Do not send your child in sick to school. It's just not a good idea. Please just let the office know that your child is going to miss their appointment, and we will reschedule. Generally, what we do is we test in the morning. Kids come in, we have attendance taken, we settle down. We generally pick them up around 9 o'clock, we test, we do the first part, we take a break, not a long break, sometimes it's just water, we do some jumping jacks, we walk around the building, we come back and we do the second part of the exam. A couple of things that you should know is that we cannot repeat questions unless there is some disturbance and there's a reason why a child could not hear the questions. So it's a good thing if you're practicing, please practice with your child to listen very carefully the first time. Secondly, another thing that will impact testing. I know that when you register, you are given a preference of language. You should know that a language preference can only be given to you if your child actually tests in to ESL. That is, that he is an English language learner. If he is not, he will get the test in English. This has been a little bit of a confusion over the years. We, again, as Daniel said and Ms. Beckman said, we do not have access to the scores. We don't even know exactly when they come out. The only time that Miss Lorraine and I find out are when parents come and tell us that they got in or they didn't get in. But we don't really have any other information, and we are not notified that scores are released. So we can't even answer you generally, let alone specifically. The test, as Daniel said, is in two parts. One is completely visual, and one is auditory. You have to listen and respond. For the most part, the teachers that are involved in testing, other than myself, we've been doing this a long time. We try to keep kids calm. We give them a break if they need it. And we're very much guided in terms of the pacing of the test by the group that we have in front of us. So we want everyone to succeed, and we try very hard to make that happen and not stress them out. So please trust us. We've done this a lot. And sometimes your anxiety kind of just breaks down the whole thing. So give them a chance. They're smart, they listen, they know what to do. Now, as my other hat, I am the instructional coach. I work with all the grades and all the teachers. Mandana asked me to speak a little bit about our curriculum. We are a balanced literacy school in ELA, and that is based on 5 or 6 different components of how we teach reading and writing. We use assessments that are designed by Fontes and Cannell, in which we decide through those assessments what students' reading levels are and what are the things that they need to have addressed at any given time. We believe in small group instruction. This is how we differentiate for the needs of students, both gifted, gen ed, and special needs kids. We are in math, a combination of many, many curriculums, primarily because there is no curriculum out there that really satisfies all of the Common Core requirements that we have been adopting in our school. I can tell you that we use everyday math, we use components of Singapore math, we use some of investigations math, and we would love it if there was a curriculum out there that really addressed all that, but there is none. And so we use the best of all of those in order to teach the kids what they need to know in mathematics. Science, social studies. Science, predominantly we are a FOSS school, which means we believe in hands-on science activities. These are kits that kids get to do experiments, they get to write up their observations, they learn how to do a science lab in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. This is tremendously helpful for when they get to middle school and high school, which is it's a requirement. You have to do this. You have to have that investigative approach, and we do. In social studies is really embedded in ELA. It's really about reading nonfiction texts and primary resources and doing a lot of research. We do that in kindergarten all the way through, and it's amazing how hard students work to gather, gain knowledge, and reorganize it in a way that they can share with their buddies and with their teachers and create research projects. But I've talked about it. Any questions? Yeah? No, the test is only one-on-one for pre-K students. Those are students born, I think, in 2011. For students born in 2010, it's up to 5 students at a time. For students born in 2000, go the other way, 2009, it's up to 10 students. It's one-on-one. I have to tell you that since testing for pre-K does not happen in this building, but happens at the district office, I really can't speak to the mechanics of that.
Yeah. Basically, they really try to get you in at your given time. There are multiple testers at the site. They're prepared to take you more or less when your appointment is for. Yeah, it's not timed.
It's not time, but I'm sorry. It's not time, but I know for testing kindergarten children, it takes us by the time you pick them up, you settle them down, you do part 1, you take a break, you do part 2, you get them back to class. I would say a good 90 minutes. Okay? Yes. Well, did you pick up a practice booklet so they know that they're going to be having this? I mean, I would just say you're going to be working with a new person today. That person's an educator. They're there to help you. They're going to ask you some questions, and you're just going to do the best that you can and focus on the pictures in the first part and listening on the second part. And they will see other students there. There will not just be adults. So you can say that, oh, all these kids are here today just to do the same thing that you want. And you can do it. Yeah.
Hi, to ask a question, remember something you mentioned. So if a child is tested in a different language, because our child is trilingual, so he actually speaks Russian with me, German with his dad, and English is his weakest language. So, I mean, we're testing him in Russian because that is his strongest language and he's in the Russian program. So you mentioned that the kids are being tested into the ESL program?
Yes.
What does that mean? Does that mean that we can automatically...
What grade is your child?
Pre-K.
Pre-K. Okay. So pre-K.
So the pre-K age children can test at the language of the parent's request because they've not undergone the process where they're identified as an English language learner. But once children come to school and are at the kindergarten level and beyond, they will be assessed to determine if they're an English language learner, or if that's not their dominant language. And so if they have that status, then they can test in another language. But at pre-K, it's really, you know your child, they're little, and you know what language they would be assessed best in.
So our choice of school is pretty much the same as anyone who's taking the test in English.
Oh, certainly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Also, too, you should know that if your child does qualify to take the test in another language, we as a school hire translators to come in and do the test. A pedagogue is there, a teacher from the school is there, working with and overseeing the testing process. Yeah.
Along the same line, we're also a bilingual household. My child is a dual language speaker. If my child speaks a language that is not one of those languages that is listed in the handbook, is there any accommodations or any requests that can be made? Is it only limited to those languages?
Just those 9, yeah.
And the difficulty there is that you have then, you cannot secure the test because the person translating can translate something loosely and not, there's no consistency. So it has, the test is read by the translator in that language, and so it is always consistently proctored.
Just one other quick question.
Sure.
Also, my child is going to kindergarten, so pre-K now. I know that the method by which they choose answers is the pointing method. However, my question is, would you guys accept like another method, namely like, let's say like putting a coin on the correct answer? I'll tell you why, just because using your fingers and manipulating a lot of those shapes and thinking about things, you know, in different moving, you know, space, yeah, it's sort of like, you know, they're using their hands a lot, and I don't want a tester to record an incorrect answer just because they're sort of moving and pointing.
I think in pre-K the proctor is required to actually record the responses.
They
So
are.
yeah, they are. The child is not responsible in K either to record the final answer. But let me just get your. I think what you're asking. So there are.
Like as an alternative, the way I've been teaching it is to put a quarter on the correct answer. Like that's your final answer. You know, as opposed to pointing to something when they're manipulating or in their mind.
The only thing that could be an issue, and I really have to go back to my testing guru, is that there are a limited number of tools that can actually accompany the taking of the test. That is a pencil and something called a marker, which is just a piece of cardboard that sort of keeps a kid on the question. And as far as the instructions that are within the testing booklet, that is all, and the test booklet that a child is supposed to have in front of them during the test.
I'm happy to reach out to our assessment team just to see what the answer. I haven't heard that question before, and it doesn't sound unreasonable, but I know there's definitely an official answer to it. So if you and I want to connect, I'll give you our email. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think this sounds more of like a theoretical question about the merits of gifted and talented education. And it's not one I'm really going to be able to answer. I don't think anyone's refuting that.
Yes.
Just a quick question about the pre-K testing also. If a child's to answer before the question is completely read, if a child's to answer before the question is completely read, say out of excitement or just they've heard a similar question so many times they think they know the answer, is that the answer that's taken, or will they have to wait till the end of the question and response? I'm wondering if you're penalized for answering early without listening to the end of the question.
Yeah, because that's the answer then. You know.
I mean, that's fine.
But a skilled proctor
Right.
will, give a sample question,
Right.
will pay attention to how students behave and respond to that sample question,
Okay.
and should be able to tell a child, you really must listen to the whole question before you respond. Yes, sir.
In general, in a city like this, how much do you recommend tracking children versus letting them be natural and just see, whether they fit in that? Because, you know what I mean?
I think for content, you really can't prep the child. I think the only thing that you can do is perhaps help a little bit with test behavior, i.e. that you sit, that you're listening to the question, that you're turning the page, that you're following when the person says look for this or look for that on the page. I think that's the only, and that's provided, though, that kind of sample is actually provided in the booklet that was handed out by Ms. Lorraine. I mean, that's a very accurate depiction of what the test looks like. So I think that's 90% of what really has to be paid attention to. Yeah.
It's in color or almost black and white?
Oh, it's in color. Yeah, it's very visually engaging. It really is.
Full status.
Are there any